yun nga, no, legacy project, and we're at the end of the day, it's just really creating a rich trove of
Testimony.
oral testimony about people who worked with and whose lives, revolved and, ran alongside, FBR's time. You, I guess, came in shortly before the presidency, and when he was Secretary of National Defense. Can you trace the root of it all?
Yes, Toby, I graduated in Ateneo Law School in 1989. And my first job was with the Department of National Defense.
Wow.
It was a walk-in, endorsed by my father, who was then in sports. No, he was the PBA commissioner, and then Defense Secretary Ramos was the national sports head of badminton, I believe. No, so they happened to know each other in the sports field, and my father told Defense Secretary Ramos, "Here is my son, fresh graduate. He wants to work for you." So,
Totoo ba yun? You really wanted to work for him?
very much. I was in law school in 1986 when the revolution happened.
Oh, okay.
And I was looking at then Secretary of Defense, Vice Chief of Staff. And I told myself, I will work for this guy someday
Talaga.
because I really admired him from afar. And my first admiration of him was very funny because I'm a sports buff, a fitness buff, and I saw him jumping and clapping his feet up in the air during that time, during the revolution. If you remember, he will jump up and then clap. And to be able to do that, you have to be very fit.
Yes.
Right? You have stomach muscles, everywhere has to be fit. And I told myself, wow, at this age he can do that. I like him, I'll work for him someday. So I did.
The opportunity
And the
came.
opportunity came, and so I did.
Did you tell your dad, can you recommend me or
No.
endorse me?
I just told my dad, he said, are you working for a law firm? I said, no, I don't want to work for a law firm. I want to give back something to my country.
Okay.
And he said, oh, how? I want to work for the Secretary Ramos. Oh, I happen to know him. I'll introduce you. But it's up to you, he said. He's very formal, He has to, you have to impress him and make. So I did, and he asked me, and I remember he was chewing on his tobacco.
Tell me the incident.
We entered the room, and my father said, "Sir, good afternoon. Oh, Rudy, how are you? Sir, I'm here because my son here, Ato, told me personally that he wants to work for you. So here I am, endorsing him to you." And Secretary Ramos looked at me and said, he was chewing on his tobacco and said, "Write me a one-page letter telling me why I should accept you here."
Wow.
I remember that distinctly. And I said, "Yes, Mr. Secretary." And so I did. I told him why I want to work for him and what I want to learn from him and what I probably can do for him. So true enough, a official communication came from Department of National
Was
Defense.
that the same day that you wrote the letter?
I went home
Uh-huh.
and then I dutifully wrote the letter. I was very scared because what will I write the secretary? But I told him exactly what I felt. I really want to be of service to the country, and I think I look up to you, and I really want to work for you. So I did, and then nothing on a relationships basis. There was a Department of National Defense letter saying you are asked to report to DND, to report to Human Resources for testing. So I was tested by Human Resources, and that's why my official first job was DND under Office of Human Resources. Personnel, my first job, because I was a lawyer, and my task was to write the legal briefs for personnel discipline, fines, suspension, even dismissals.
You needed
Because-
a legal mind for
Correct,
that.
correct. So that's what I was doing. And then I think what happened was that anything that involves dismissal will have to be signed by the secretary.
Of course.
Of course. So I think the secretary saw it and said, "Oh, this is a different kind of writing. Perhaps he was used to others." So he called for me, and he said, "Do you write speeches?" I never wrote a speech, Mr. Secretary, but I can try. And he said, "Write this for me." So he threw something and then handed something, and he said, "It's a Rotary Club of Manila message."
Okay.
Something like that, no?
It was a message for some
For
program.
anniversary of Rotary Club of Manila.
It was going to be printed.
Yes,
Okay.
a message
So
for
nakikita
him.
mo sa ano?
Yeah,
Okay.
message from him. So I wrote it. I wrote it. And then at that time, again, if I'm recollecting correctly, at that time the issue of the day was the lack of garbage collection in Metro Manila. You remember sometime in Cory's time, there was a time when garbage wasn't collected, and
89 na ba yan? O
90
1990?
na, 1991, going 1991.
Oh.
And I think we wrote and then we wrote about Rotary Club, citizenship, because that's what Rotary Club is all about. And I think Secretary Ramos liked the message. So he said, "From now on, you will come with me in all my trips outside Metro Manila for the Peace and Order Council." He was the chairman of the Peace and Order Council.
Yes, yes.
So every day he was flying out. So he said, "You will be my writer from now on."
Okay.
That's when I started really getting to know
Oh,
the man.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what was it like? I mean, the transition from, idol, admired from afar, di ba, to everyday jostling and, rubbing elbows with him.
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. I'm telling you, Tony.
Okay.
I could not have gotten a better training. The kind of training that up till today I'm reaping the benefit of. I remember when I first came with him on a trip. He was walking down the aisle of the Fokker plane, and he said, "Did you bring your rubber shoes?" I said, "No." Next time you have to bring your rubber shoes, because apparently what happens is he lands, he does not sleep in the hotel, as you know, that he will sleep in the barracks, in the camp. And the first thing he does in the morning is jog.
He jogs.
He will go jogging with his soldiers. And then he will end up in the market, have coffee and breakfast there with the people. Then
Talaga?
back to the barracks, quick shower.
Oh.
And then off to the first Peace and Order Council meeting.
Oh.
So if you don't have a rubber shoes, then you're not part of the entourage because you will have to jog. So I remember that. Next time, you bring your rubber shoes. Yes, Mr. Secretary. So, and we will stay in the barracks, not in the hotel. So we stayed in the barracks. His work ethic, his fabled work ethic, I saw up front. And I can just remember how every minute counted.
Well, what's the work ethic about?
His work ethic is all about, if I can trace it in simplistic terms or in simple terms, wake up at 4 a.m. If he's in Manila, wake up at 4 a.m.
Early start.
Early start. Around 4:30, he will have his clippings, the newspaper clippings,
Okay.
on his desk. Because I did, together with the small team, the newspaper clippings.
Oh, you were part of that team.
I was part of the team in the Department of National Defense.
So how did you organize that? How is that organized?
So a military jeep will
Pick up.
buy the newspapers very early in bundles, and then it will pick up the team that will read the papers and cut it and paste it in bond papers. And I'm part of the team. So I will be in Camp Aguinaldo, Office of Department of National Defense at around 4:15 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, then we cut, and there is a format: local, national, international, economy, military, insurgency. There was already a format that is prescribed, and you will cut it, and then it will be pasted.
Who came up with that format? Sorry.
When I came, it was already there,
It was already
and I think it was already a practice he did way back, way back in his career. And then what happened was that it was on his desk, and then he will look at it, and then that's when I first found out about his famous red pen.
Okay.
Right? He will write notes there. For example, the news is, military troops attacked in Zamboanga, for example. Okay. To AFP Chief of Staff, please report outcome of investigation, NLT, not later than 5 April. Then it will be given to his team, and it will be barcoded. As early as then, he was already technology aided. I was already seeing him using technology to aid and speed up the efficiency and effectiveness of his work.
Cabinet secretary pa lang siya.
He was the defense secretary at that time. It will be barcoded, and then it will be distributed, and there was it will all come back with the report, and then it just goes every day. Every day, that's right.
The barcode is a way of tracking when it was
dispatched and when it comes back.
Oh my.
Correct. So it's easy to follow up, right? Barcode this. And then at around 5 o'clock, I will see him in his room watching CNN, International News.
I'm sorry, AM?
AM, around 5 to 6 AM. He will start with local news, and then he will go on to international news.
All right.
Because I can hear, I'm a young man then, I was just, going in and out of his room, bringing, he will be watching international news. So by 6 a.m., Toby, 6 to 6:30 a.m., he read all local news, dispatched his instructions, read international news. By 6:30, when he received somebody for a first appointment of the day, he is as ready as anyone.
First appointment of the day?
Yes.
6:30.
6:30,
Breakfast
7,
meeting.
sometimes even earlier. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That is when he is in Manila.
Sumisikat pa lang ang araw, attorney.
He is already many steps ahead of people who are still in their beds.
Okay. Yeah, right. People were just getting up for their day, no?
Yes, he would have finished the local news, would have finished international news, would have dispatched instructions to his team, and then ready to receive his first appointment. Yeah.
FVR came in with the stigma as the chief implementer of martial law.
Yes.
Did that bother you in any way? I mean, especially coming from your academic background.
Yes.
Jesuits and
Yes.
Hindi ba?
Yes.
So, hindi ba naging problema sa iyo yun?
Alam mo,
Or was it really the persona created after EDSA that was really more imprinted already on you?
correct. I think it was the persona created after EDSA that really resonated with me more than what his role was before that. Only because bata rin ako noon nung panahon na yon, hindi rin sumasagi sa isipan ko masyado ang mga national issues at that time. Pero nung nangyari na yung EDSA, yan yung nag-iisip ka, meron ka na talagang assessment sa nangyayari, at may judgment ka na. At yun ang nakita ko na despite all the danger to his life, he did what he did, and that's what caught my attention and admiration. So sabi ko, I will work for this guy someday. And true enough, it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you already shared with us the work style. Early start. How long would that day last?
Oh. So it will be an early start, and then the appointments will be well in place for the rest of the day, no? And it will be all his time will be well spent. I can see it. There's no monkeying around, no chit chat, it's really one appointment after the other,
Talaga,
as
wala-
far as I can see.
No time to relax or that kind of thing.
He will do that. He will go to the back room, and then he will talk to his staff like us. I was very junior then. He will say, he will crack stories and jokes. But what I know is that it's only a respite for the next engagement. There's always a purpose for the day, and I can see it. Even in between appointments, I can also see how he replenishes himself. The art of the cat nap.
Oh,
I can see that. We ride the car from one appointment to another. Immediately he will shut down and grab a sleep, grab a nap,
talaga.
so that when in the next engagement is already as fresh as a daisy again.
Talaga.
Yeah.
Power nap.
Power nap, cat nap. Kasi maikli lang eh.
Oo.
Minsan, from one engagement to the other.
Oo.
And again, I think that's one of his assets, no? To be able to do that. I cannot do it.
Talaga.
Oo, ako.
You never picked up the habit from him.
No, because I feel lethargic after. Parang gusto mong patagalin yung tulog mo eh.
Oo.
Pero siya, and then up, and then game again. So yung nakikita mo yung in fact one story also I have is we will stop at a place, and then I just had breakfast, for example, at 8 o'clock, and then we will stop at a place at around 11 o'clock, and food will be served by the host, for example, and I will not touch the food, no, because I'm still full. I just had, and then I remember him telling me, did you eat? I said, no, sir, because I'm still full. You should eat, because you'll never know when your next meal is.
Yeah. Right.
So I said, okay, true enough. Sometimes the next meal is at 5 p.m. You don't know, because you're always moving. Your next engagement.
Oh, yeah.
So I pick up these things from him, and it has really enriched my life.
Tricks of the
Tricks of the trade. Mga tricks of the trade niya.
Oh.
And then I went into communications after a while. No? I was put in the office of the press secretary when he became the president. So I learned again. I learned a lot from him. I discussed with him issues in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And one of the things he taught me every time I raised to him an issue, I said, Mr. President, this one I think could be an issue someday. He will always say, Ato, remember this, SCAME, SCAME, source. I say, what's the source? Who wrote it? What was the source of the article? Who are the sources being quoted? Are they credible? Content. What's the content? Right? They can be credible, but if the content is benign, what's the worry? What is it saying? Content. Hey, audience, who's reading this?
Who's reading it?
Yeah. Or is it read by anyone? Is it medium? What was the medium used? Was it visual? Was it written? Was it oral? And then, in the end, what's your assessment of the effect? What's the overall effect? And then you can tell me your recommendation after you've gone through that. I said, yeah, you're right. I said,
Parang issue brief.
Parang issue brief. Source, content, audience, medium, effect, scheme. And that was embedded in my mind from that time on. And even today, I use it in my job. Every time I see something and make a recommendation to to the companies I work for, I use that framework scheme, and that came from President Ramos.
Talaga.
Yes.
Is he a regular, well, he's certainly not a regular 8 to 5 fellow, ano?
Yes.
The day starts at 4 o'clock.
Correct.
Well, what time does it end?
Depends on nag-iba kasi I met him as Defense Secretary,
Nung
and then
defense-
as a candidate,
Oo.
and then as a President.
Nung SND pa,
Nung SND,
may regularity pa ba?
ang naaalala ko is, pag bumabiyahe, by 5 p.m., kailangan umalis ka na dun sa area, di ba? Kasi chopper yun eh. So, lalanding ng mga 6
Villamor.
sa Villamor, uuwi sa kampo, sa Campo Aguinaldo, o minsan diretso lang sa bahay niya, pero Campo Aguinaldo, tapos magpe-paperwork pa siya eh. So, I don't know really how long it lasts, but 7, 8 p.m., I'm sure he's still working.
And you would knock off?
I would knock off mga oras na pumasok na siya sa gabi sa kwarto niya ng mga ganon. Tapos na rin kami. Kasi I have to be ready naman for the next day.
For the next
Kasi
day.
maaga na naman. Oo.
May karelebo ka ba dito?
Team kami eh. Team.
Okay.
Oo,
So there
we're
was a
team.
rotation.
So it was under the Office of Public Affairs, under Lulu Ilustre, who I know, I'm sure you know.
Chairman.
Yeah, your chairman. So who was herself a taskmaster and a very good mentor.
Yes.
So
Ang layo na sa abogasiya, Ato.
malayo. Kaya nga napunta ako sa field na ito eh, communications, corporate affairs, because by history, that was what was needed by then Secretary Ramos, a communicator. So that was the area that I
That was where you got into.
put and got into. Kasi
Apparently, he saw the potential and he saw the skill set there.
siguro, dahil ako hindi ko naman naisip sa sarili ko na I will be in communications eh. So but I think then Secretary Ramos thought he could train me and also make use of whatever I have in terms of communications. And so that's the field where I went into.
He had an eye actually, for recognizing the potential in people. Apparently, I guess he picked it up from his life as a soldier. But eventually, for example, when he started, when he picked his cabinet, a lot of them were actually not very popular or unknown.
Correct.
Or not very popular, but very well known within their circles of expertise,
Oo.
Health, di ba?
Totoo yan. Sa akin, ang napansin ko, ang lalim kasi ng career ni President Ramos. So marami na siyang nakasalumuhang tao eh. So mas marami din siyang source na pagpipilian ng tao. Yan ang napansin ko sa kanya na very varied yung mga taong nakilala niya at pinagpipilian niya. So, and then the next one is he really knows how to train people. Hindi lang get and then bahala ka na, I will rely on you. It's really a training process with him, and him also learning for sure. But
and he encouraged people to upgrade their skills and their knowledge base,
very much. He's a voracious reader. He will always refer to something when you talk to him. So you're always... Ang naaalala ko talaga kay President Ramos is technology. He was already tech-driven as early as 89, 90.
Yeah.
He always looked at technology as a way to become more efficient and effective in the performance of his duties.
Tool, It's
As a tool.
na ginamit talaga niya.
Oo.
Teka, sandali lang. So, 1990 na tayo. Kailan siya when did he announce his
President, his
he was
candidacy?
throwing his hat into the into
1990,
he was going to seek
91.
91ish.
Baka 91ish na yun.
He was going to run against Speaker
Speaker
Mitra at the
Mitra.
time. No?
Oo. At that time, beauty contest pa sa LDP eh. Nagbe-beauty contest pa sila sa LDP, sino pipiliin. So, marami pang mga parang yung proseso ng partido kung sinong pipiliin, di ba? So,
The primaries.
the primaries. So, yun, nakakasama ko pa rin siya doon. Nakikita ko na siya na nagtatransform siya into a candidate naman, to a political candidate, unti-unti.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, he was, I guess, initially stiff, monotonous,
Right.
colorless.
Correct.
Kailan mo unang napansin yung may ambition yung
Oo.
may ambition si Sec?
Oo.
Diba?
Actually, nung pumasok ako sa kanya, I had zero inkling that he had an ambition to run for any public office. I thought he was a professional civil servant, and that was about it. I began to notice it when we were going around for his Peace and Order Council meetings as chairman of the Peace and Order Council. And I noticed that when he is talking to the audience, his perspective is very national, not just peace and order only.
Local.
Hindi lang yung peace and order, very military, very police. Ang perspective niya is he's already connecting it to national development, what the country needs, with peace and order as one of the pillars. So nakikita ko na unti-unti lumalawak at nagiging mas macro yung kanyang dating sa pagkikipag-usap sa tao. And because I was part of the team writing his press releases, pag-uwi, we will have to write kasi there's a DND press corps.
Yes.
You have to report ano nangyari. Even the way we wrote the press release, it's already also connected with what President Corazon Aquino then was trying to achieve and what peace and order contributes to that. So nakikita ko before my eyes nagtatransform siya into a national leader, not just a cabinet secretary. Unti-unti, not overnight unti-unti ko nakikita.
And it became actually the Peace and Order Council meetings and engagements. Totoo ba yun? Eventually became the platform for sharing his vision.
Yes, eventually, because the people also responded, even with their questions. It's not anymore a question of purely military or security issues. The questions became even that went beyond that, no? So, what are your views about? Iba na eh. Nag-iiba na rin yung mga tanong. Ano po ba ang mamumungkahi nyo tungkol sa? And so it became a platform for him to also articulate his views for the country. Always supportive of President Aquino. Yun rin ang napansin ko sa kanya. I never saw him striking on his own. If he was talking about something for the bigger beyond peace and order, it was always in support of what the president was trying to accomplish.
Team player.
That's what I saw. This guy is a team player. He's just really supporting what the president is trying to accomplish. Always relating it back to that. So the forum eventually became more than a Peace and Order Council meeting because it became a venue to discuss national development, national issues.
So parang naging networking or opportunity to build a support base already, a support network for just in case he decides.
On hindsight, at that time, I didn't know that. To be very honest, I didn't know that. I was a young, junior, first job guy, part of his team. I didn't have the sophistication to be able to see whether it was really becoming that for him. On hindsight, yes, I can see na, oo nga, nakilala pala siya dun sa pa-travel niya yun. And whether it was deliberately done or not, I don't know. I really didn't, I I wasn't high up in the organization to be able to know that. But all I knew was that he dispensed his duty as chairman of the Peace and Order Council with dedication. Did it really the way it should be done. Discuss the issues, provided the advice, dispatched the resources needed, answered the questions, and really used that council to the hilt in terms of enhancing national security, peace and order.
And get people to buy into
Yes,
a common goal, ano.
correct, yeah.
Parang ano pa, military pa rin.
Military pa rin.
But management and leadership of a
Yes,
leader.
ganun pa rin eh. Kasi ang mga natatandaan ko noon, nakikinig ako, he will say, if there's a insurgency in one area, you have to clear it, and then you have to hold it, then you have to develop it. Clear, hold, develop, and then turn over. So, it's a military, I'm sure it's a military formula, but it makes a lot of sense, right? So, nakikinig ako as a civilian, it made a lot of sense.
Pero engineer din eh. So,
Yes, he's a builder. So,
builder.
nakikita mo rin na he's a builder, he builds. May mga, for him, it's building blocks, a building block approach, not grand visions. It's a building block so that we can achieve the ultimate goal.
One step
One
leads
step,
to the next.
yes. Correct.
Process. How does his mind think, by the way? Give us a look-see into. I mean, you were writing all this stuff for him, I guess. Of course, I cannot. I'm sure there are many others who can attest to or have even deeper experience with that. But from what I see, it's very systematic. That's for sure. Very logical and very systematic. Never akong nagkaroon ng moment sa kanya, Toby, na ano yun? Ano yung sinabi niyang yun? At bakit? Laging it made sense. Very systematic, very logical. Second is facts-based. Always facts-based. Ano bang report? Ano bang sinasabi? Hindi yung... so I guess it's again part of his military training. No? There's a report, and then you have to look at the report, and then you have facts-based. Third is... So, very logical and systematic. Second, napansin ko, very facts-based. There's a report, tinitignan yung report, and use that as basis of any actions. Third din, napapansin ko, many sources of information. Hindi lang isa. Napapansin ko. This is all throughout my... Consultative. He sought out
He sought out many angles and sources of information. Because siguro, he knew nga yung tinuturo niya sa akin. What's the source? What's the content? Siyempre yung source, of course, everyone will have biases. My source, pag may sabihin ako, nothing wrong with that. It's up to the leader to really look at as many angles and sources as possible before you make a decision. And that's what I noticed from him also. He asks, even me, a relative junior in his team, he will ask my opinion. What do you think of this?
So walang decision na hindi thought of?
Hindi padalos-dalos. Hindi knee-jerk. Hindi padalos-dalos. Pinag-isipan, vinet, at tinignan ng mga anggulo. Yun ang napansin ko sa kanya.
But you have to stay sharp. I mean, you always had to be on your toes. I mean, how did you keep up?
I had to keep up because I had to keep up by exercising, by physically, really, because you cannot keep up with him if you don't. Okay. You will be worn down, and you will eventually drop out of the scene, so to speak, because hindi ka makakasabay eh. Nakakapagod eh, grueling at nakakapagod. So physically you have to read up. you have to know what's happening, you know. And the newspapers was one of the best sources, you know, because the newspaper is an accumulation of many intelligence reports of all the reporters, which is your job, Toby, no? So you have to keep up, you know. You have to. I was reading 10, 12 newspapers a day easily, and trying to assess which is true, which is not true, which makes sense, and really getting a picture of what's happening nationally on a given or on any given issue. So you read up, you're physically fit. You also, there's also a sense of, at least at my level, a sense of service na not because nakadikit ka sa presidente, para kang boss. Entitled. Hindi eh, baliktad eh. Parang ang dating nga is, since you're one of his staff, then you better help the cabinet secretaries, other people, so that they can in turn also perform to the president's satisfaction. Diba? So a sense of service and a staff to all is what I also learned under his tutelage.
May temper ba?
So, yung temper, I think many people have spoken about the president's temper. Many people a number of people will tell you. So yes, meron, kasi siyempre na-frustrate siya eh. Sa kabagalan ng trabaho minsan, mabagal. It's not to his satisfaction in terms of the quality. Naririnig ko yun minsan dun sa backroom. May pinapagalitan. Ball out ang word nila, no? Na ball out ka. Na ball out. Bino-ball out niya. But para sa akin, ang kwentuhan nun is, kung hindi ka niya bino-ball out, ibig sabihin, hindi ka pa close sa kanya. Kung bino-ball out ka, ibig sabihin, mahal ka niya. Kasi komportable na siya na maghinga ng pressure ng work sa iyo eh.
So you're a made man.
If he balls you out, that means he's comfortable with you, and he knows you can take it, di ba? Kasi
But the other thing you said, that it was in the back room, so he never did it in public.
Never. Sa akin, never. Never. At never ko rin nakita.
So it was
always in his
one-on-one, face-to-face.
Maririnig mo. Tapos yung joke namin nun is yung tabako pag ninangat-ngat ng mainit ang ulo niyan. Mainit niya. Pero pag hindi ninangat-ngat, relax lang. Okay, magandang weather. Good weather. Lapit ka.
Someone told us about that, eh, di ba? Code phrases was kamusta ang panahon dyan?
Mga ganon. Kaming mga staff, meron na kaming mga tanungan, good weather, bad weather, okay bang lumapit, wag ngayon. Kasi kami lahat ang malalapit sa kanya, no? Kami ang tumutulong sa kanya. So it became a way of life din sa amin.
OC ba?
Sa akin, lang yung word na CSW, yung completed staff work.
Okay.
That for me, is his OC. Na ayaw ng sloppy work. Gusto niya, pag may pinagawa, completed staff work. Na tinignan lahat ng angulo, tinignan lahat ng kailangan kausapin, you really covered all the bases. Before you make any recommendation. So yung word na completed staff work for me is the same words I use to my team now. Kasi pag may hilaw na dumadating, how best to describe it to them is, hindi kompleto to eh. Complete staff work. And that's what he always used.
If you do it, you might as well do it
well. Do it well, do it thoroughly, and whatever your recommendations are in the end, it makes sense because it follows through eh. nagpa-follow through eh. So
Okay, beauty contest ng LDP. Ang problema, nanalo yung isang si speaker ang si speaker ang hinirang ano kandidato eh. Get us into his mind again. Why did he still push on? I mean, he lost. It was a major setback. Any other candidate would have said, sige, let's fold up. But
Yes,
he didn't.
he didn't.
Were you there at that meeting sa Piso?
I was in the vicinity of the meetings, but I was not in the inner team
Oh,
of seniors
yeah.
because I was a junior staffer.
Yes.
So you hear in anecdotes, anong napag-usapan, you hear through team meetings, what could be the next steps. But one thing that I remember very well is that President Ramos had the respect of President Cory. And that President Cory was very appreciative of the professionalism and loyalty of then Secretary Ramos. That was very clear to me. And because of that, there was a hope, even faint hope, that President Cory could still endorse him. So that was what I was getting, the vibe then. Now whether there was a talk between them, I don't know. That's not my level. That was not my level of seniority then. But that was, as a junior, that was what I was getting the sense. And that President Cory will make a choice based on what she felt was going to be good for the country. So that was it. And
So the primary was just one battle, but not
the ultimate battle.
Oh.
It wasn't the ultimate battle. That was how I understood it then. Of course, it would have made it easier if he won the LDP primaries, but he didn't. And then one day, we just found out na he was endorsed by President Cory. So tuloy ang laban, di ba? Tuloy ang laban.
Tuloy yung laban, pero it was a supposedly small army ragtag.
Oo.
Hindi organisado yung... Well, it wasn't an organized political machinery like, LDP or Ganding's NPC. Sino pa ba yung mga kalaban nyo?
Miriam.
KBL. Miriam probably in the same level. Salongas Liberal Party. So, di ba? Mga mga old names.
Yes.
With very viable organizations.
Yes.
How did you guys expect to slug it out with?
I don't know. Again, all I knew was that the campaign team was being organized in Pasay Road. In Pasay Road, no?
Piso.
In Piso. And then, but again, looking back now, I thought that Piso operation was very organized, because I've been part of other campaigns later on in my life, and I can now, because at that time it was my first.
Yes.
I can now compare. No, this was very organized. There was a team. There was a leader. There was a meeting later on at night, an assessment. Next day's meeting, assessment, and then off you go. So small or ragtag as it was very organized.
But he liked operating that way, di ba? Small, compact.
Yes.
Very, di ba? Very mobile. Di ba?
Yeah.
Quick to react teams.
So I was put under the team of the late Ambassador Jun Losada. Yeah.
Oo nga.
And so I learned a lot from him also.
Also,
So we were
Parang
working.
political, di ba? Tell me how did FDR like his speeches done? I mean, uh, did he like it in bullets or did he like it in sentences?
Uh, when he was when he became president, the operations became more sophisticated because there was just too many speeches, and the level of the speeches had to be brought up, no? Because of international commitments,
Right,
international
right.
speeches. So,
Right.
but what I fondly remember was the DND days.
Okay,
Because the DND days is parang kami-kami lang yun no?
The birth of
DND days, ang una mong isasubmit, speech outline. Hindi ka susulat kagad ng speech. Speech outline muna. Ano ba yung speech outline mo? Part 1, introduction. Sabihin mo, part 2, ano yung topic ng part 2? Bullet points. Part 3, bullet points. Then conclusion. He will have to approve the speech outline first.
Wow.
And then in the speech outline, he will already insert his notes and say, insert this, insert this. So, and then the speech outline goes back to, we submit the speech outline to Lulu Illustre, Lulu Illustre to him, and then the speech outline goes back to Lulu with his notes, and then Lulu sits down with us and says, okay, this is what he wants. Then, off we go. Yeah, we were 3 or 4 people then. Yeah.
and then you would
And then we will
merge it.
flesh out the speech.
Talaga.
Yeah, and then back to Lulu. And then Lulu will edit it a little. Diego was there. Diego Cagas.
Kagahastian?
No, not Diego Cagas. There were a couple of them. Then we'll go to the secretary for final approval. So that was how it was working then. Yeah.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis. And then we had a research team who will give us the research the research to back up the speech.
Yeah. In facts-based.
The facts, the facts to back up the speech.
How did he prepare for the speech? I mean, did he rehearse before?
I never saw him rehearse for a speech. All I know is that what I remember is going through the speech with him while he is correcting it page by page by page, and I'm sitting down, and then him telling me this, change this word, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then he will pause in a certain paragraph. Then I can see him saying it aloud to himself. Then change. Then next. Then back to you.
Okay.
Then you change it and goes back to him. I guess that's how he rehearsed it in his mind. No? He's already, as he corrects it, he's already thinking how he will deliver it.
Yes.
That's why he pauses, and then I can see his lips moving, maybe articulating it in his mind, and changes one word, and this and that. Yeah.
Ano rin talaga? Diligent, ano?
Oo, talaga.
Oh. But, so you said he eventually evolved, ano? So, kailan na yung naabutan na niya yung na talaga, politician na, no longer military man, no longer, diba?
Yeah.
Dry, colorless, General Ramos.
Oo. I guess during the campaign itself, talagang yun na yun going to the presidency. Siguro dahil just the mere process of going through that campaign cannot but transform you, transform any man. So I think that's how he transformed during the campaign process. So by the time he went to Malacanang and assumed the presidency, he already was both. He was never, for me, in the way I saw him, he never let go of his military training and his military persona and his military upbringing. In fact, he leveraged it because it was a strength. So why let go of a strength, right?
Yes.
So he just used it as a platform to add something more so that he can become a fuller national leader. And that's how I saw him as he assumed the presidency.
I love the way you put it. Baka naalala ko pa bang highs and lows nung kampanya? When was the darkest moment? When was, I suppose, the brightest moment was when proclaimed.
Oo. Kasi yung my involvement with him to became abbreviated sa kampanya.
Okay.
Kaya hindi ko meron lang ako sa umpisa and then tumigil ako Dahil my father campaigned for danding ko ako.
Oh my God. Oo nga pala.
Diba? Oo. So I told the president I told him sir, kakahiya naman to. Magmumukha kaming namamangka sa dalawang ilog.
Conflict of interest.
At baka mapagdudahan pa tayo. Papas na muna ako dito sa stage na to. Sabi ko, I will be supporting you from afar, pero hindi yung dito. He was so good. He said, I understand. You have to do it. Pero the moment he won naman, he called for me.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So kumampanya na sila and then I had to step back because of that issue.
But you were still with ASPA, DND.
Hindi na rin kasi the whole tumutulong na rin lahat
Nag-resign na rin siya.
Nag-resign na rin si Lulu yata noon I resigned na rin sa DND noon para walang masabi dahil kampanya
Yes.
So from afar na lang na tumutulong pa email ganon pero hindi na yung nakikita sa kampanya talaga. Nung nanalo na, I think there was a victory party in one of the compounds kay Tony Villar. I don't remember who. There was a victory party. And I was asked by one of his aides to come and join that party. So, I joined the party. Nagpakita ako sa kanya.
This was shortly before being sworn in.
Pakita ako sa kanya. So, Mr. President, congratulations. So, So, okay, you join me I need all the help. Yes, Mr. President. So, ganun na naman. But he said specifically, I want you to help Annabel Abaya and Rod Reyes. Yes, OPS. I remember at that time, yes. You joined the OPS, not sila Balong's operation. Dun sa back office doon. You be in the office of the press secretary to help Rod and Annabel. Doon tayo nagkakilala di ba?
Sec Rod was press secretary. Miss Bell was spokesperson.
Yes. Na siyempre naging masalimuot yung naging very difficult yung tandem nila di ba? Dynamics, that's the word. The dynamics became very difficult, no? And since I was there and wala naman akong politics sa katawan ko noon. I was just a junior staffer who happened to be working with the president since he was Secretary of Defense. So I was helping. I was helping Rod, I was helping Annabel, guide them on what the president wants and thinks on certain issues. So that's how I started my work naman in Malacanang.
Officially, you were...
Officially,
ano yung titulo mo ba?
Wala Officially, I was pitching in as deputy spokesman for Annabel, di ba? Pitching in dahil sila naman ang main But yung official designation talaga with the paper, wala naman ganun Under President Ramos, walang ganun Sa kanya is you help. You help. And because Rod and Annabel were needing my help, then I was helping. But kung official, it's really more on, kalimutan ko kung anong title talaga Basta I was handling Maro. Di ba? May Maro nun di ba?
Okay.
I was handling the media, the Maro operations.
Accreditation. Relations office,
I pitch in briefing the media, lalo na pag provincial sorties.
Yep.
Di ba?
I remember. Okay. Ano yung what was his guidance in so far as, management of information and communications in the OPS? Meron bang, o dinala niya yung disiplina nung
Ganon pa rin.
protocols from...
The same. Every engagement, there's a press release. If you have because his day is full of engagements, right? So every engagement, following that engagement, automatic, we write a press release. So information dissemination is so important for him. He wanted the people to know what was happening, how was he spending his day as a president. If he met a certain ambassador, and then later on he met business investors, and then later on he met local officials, and then later on he will meet an interview with media, and then later on the party. With few exceptions, you write a press release, and then you release it to the media. That's why I remember in a given day there can be 10 to 15 press releases.
Yes.
Correct? I don't know about now, but at that time, 10 to 15 press releases a day was normal.
Well, yes.
It was very normal,
Standard.
right? Standard, yeah. And the media will even say, dami nito, anong gagawin namin dito, di ba? You choose kung anong gusto nyo isulat. There was no dearth of information.
But that was also his way of, one of the tools of governance, keeping people informed.
Keeping people informed and making sure that his priorities are being drummed, being always communicated to the people. Kasi paulit-ulit sometimes. Sometimes nga, as you said, it becomes boring. But boring is exactly what helps din. Kasi paulit-ulit. Di ba? Unity, solidarity, teamwork, UST. Di ba? Tuloy-tuloy yun. Laging ganun lang ng ganun. Sasabihin.
Was it also because, especially in the early stages of the presidency, that he was very, very much into getting out what it was doing, what he was doing, why he wanted it? So was it because he was a minority, how do you call that?
Minority president?
Oo, Hindi naman talaga, plurality lang talaga Hindi naman majority vote
Oo. I heard that a lot during the early years of his presidency. He was a minority president, and that's why he has to work doubly hard so that he can win more constituents for his presidency. I heard that a lot. But having seen him in the if I didn't see him in the National Defense Days, I would think, oo nga, sinisipagan niya dahil minority president siya. Pero nakita ko kasi siya todo sa Defense Days Para sa akin, normal Para sa akin, whether minority or majority, ganyan na yan Nakita ko na ganyan na yan.
Ganun na.
During the time of the Defense Days, I saw him working very, very hard. So, nothing new. So for me, when I hear that minority president, that's why we have to work doubly hard. For me, it's when he was the defense secretary, he was also already working very, very hard. So nothing new to me. Yeah.
So let the pundits call it that.
Yes, but for me, it's business as usual for him. This is how I saw him. Business as usual. Yeah.
Okay. Did the work style take a different turn nung, Pangulo na?
Siyempre, it did in the sense that he gave due importance to the politicians. I saw that because of the LEDAC, the Legislative Executive Development Council. He knew that as good and as strong and as focused an executive that he is, he needed the Congress. Because we have a presidential system after all, right? There's Congress to work with. So rather than being a soloista, I'm a strong president and I will run this. What I saw in him is I need to partner with these people so that it's going to be a smooth prosecution of his agenda. And that's what I saw also in his appointments. More and more, maraming coordination with the members of Congress. He gave due importance to them so that the proper legislation, proper measures are passed to support this agenda. At that time, power crisis Di ba?
When he came in,
Power crisis
10 to 12 hours.
So he needed emergency powers, di ba? The Congress needed to grant him. So natural na talagang kakailanganin niya yung ang Congress.
But not only that, actually. I mean, he was very much into liberalization, di ba?
Correct.
Broke the cartels and
The monopolies.
di ba? And he needed legislation to...
Correct. He
get
needed
that
legislation.
So the LEDAC was actually a tool.
The LEDAC was like his Peace and Order Council. Parang sa akin nga, parang yun yung new Peace and Order Council niya Nakikita ko, the LEDAC always met. He made use of it. He gave it due importance. He gave the legislators due importance. And hence, mas mabilis ang daloy ng mga measures na kailangan niya to be able to govern properly.
And what I remember of the time was that actually the LEDAC became the forum for fleshing out the controversial issues of a specific piece of legislation or proposed government program.
Correct. Niluluto na nila yung bibingka doon, yung word ni... Luluto na may lutuin sa taas, lutuin sa baba, para kang gumagawa ng bibingka. Yan lagi yung sasabihin. So you work with the leaders and then you work with the people below para malaman natin kung anong sentimento nila and then we make a good bibingka. Yun na marinig mo lagi.
And make it eventually bigger so that people can have a larger slice of the
pie. Bigger pie. Bigger bibingka.
And tastier. Communications pa rin. So nag-broaden actually nung naging Pangulo na, no? What about coordination between cabinet departments?
Right.
Diba?
Right.
Medyo pag hindi marunong sumunod sa drumbeat.
Oo. I think kasi I was also privileged enough to attend all cabinet meetings. Nakita ko all cabinet meetings. During his 6 years, I was sitting on the side and listening to how he runs cabinet meetings. No choice but to coordinate yung mga cabinet ministers or secretaries because of the way President Ramos already articulates his instructions. You can tell right away that even if it's a finance project or a NEDA project or a DND project, there's no choice but they have to coordinate with the relevant agencies. Kasi the way the instructions are being barked. I want you to do this, but make sure that this, make sure you talk to this, make sure you talk to this, make sure you align with the secretary. So nakikita mo during the cabinet meeting, nakatayo ang mga tao, hindi yung nagsasalita siya na nakaupo lahat. Nakikita mo umiikot na lahat dahil nag-uusap-usap Tapos nagsasalita. It's a
very
engaged, hardworking, coordinating cabinet. Yun ang nakikita ko again as a young man with a first look at how top policy making is being made. And that's what I saw. And then it was then Lenny De Jesus, who was already as a PMS, already giving all the documents, necessary documents to back up decisions that needed to be made.
Everybody had to have a buy-in.
Yes. So may mga clusters, di ba? May mga clusters nun Economic cluster, national security cluster. So if a certain project needed some, it's part of a cluster. So automatic, no choice ka, kailangan mong iikot doon sa cluster na yun para complete nga yung staff work. So very beautiful. It's a to watch it is is a motion, motion in beauty in motion, whatever may term na. Nakikita ko, umiikot talaga ng tama.
And then eventually, it all
Luto
just
na.
gels together.
Luto na ang bibingka at papipirmahan na sa presidente.
Tama, no? So by the time it gets to him, either approve, disapprove. And there were two. We picked it up from a few people, di ba?
Dalawa lang yun, tapos ginaganon lang niya.
Either approve or disapprove.
Parang tatanda ko lang, approve, disapprove, tapos ginaganon lang eh. So, di ba? So,
okay. With media.
yes.
What was his relationship with
Media.
From your vantage point? Ano yung
Partner. Ang tingin nyo sa media, partner talaga. If you remember, weekly ang press conference. Weekly press conference. And he's the one giving it.
Face to face.
Hindi yung press secretary lang. Di ba? In fact, the press secretary or the spokeswoman is more of an exception than the rule in speaking for the president. Siya yung, di ba? Toby, natatanda mo. So, every Thursday ba o Wednesday? Wednesday yata. Every Wednesday. Midweek press conference. Pag may provincial trip, bago umuwi, press conference. Tama? Press conference yun.
With local.
With the local, press conference yun. Every engagement, press release. Di ba? Press release. So, meron kang Wednesday, meron kang local, everyday press release, every engagement. And then, from time to time, dadaan siya sa office of the press secretary para makipag-inuman ng konti sa mga tulad ninyo, di ba? Uupo, konting inom, lalagyan ng whiskey yung kape, di ba? Magkakape-kape ng konti doon. So, ang media sa kanya is very important. Hindi adversarial ang relationship. He thought media was part of his governance tool to be able to inform the public of what he was trying to achieve, trying to do. So media was there. So, and I was part of the Maro. So alam ko yan, pag sortie, kailangan talagang kasama ang media. Tatanungin niya, nasa ng media, pag wala sa engagement niya. And bibihira yung closed door, yung hindi pwede.
Yeah, that was rare.
Very rare yun. Hindi ko nga naririnig halos yung term na yun dati.
And we would actually ask, bakit closed door?
Wala eh. Wala namang ganun eh. Pag international trips, kasama ang media.
Yes.
Di ba? Kasama ang media. So, media, and then I was part of I was his point person in shepherding international media. So, naalala ko, dumadating mga international media para interviewin siya, di ba? So, he gave the time of day for them.
Yes, tell me about that. Because I remember it was, you were
I was
a point
assigned,
person.
I was assigned to that. So, as the country developed and progressed under his leadership, so more and more international media were coming in, to interview him. Of course, international media also will need advertorials and help some companies. That's part of the business. Okay lang naman yun. Pero, one thing he will do is, isama mo yan sa provincial trip. Wag dito sa Malacanang lang, i-interview ako. Wala siya makukuha sa akin dito. Kumbaga, they will not capture the essence of my leadership and my presidency by just sitting across the table in Malacanang in Rizal Room ba yun? Ask them to join the trips. And that's what I did. And so the media, plastado at the end of the day, di ba? Dahil hindi naman sila sanay sa ganun eh. Gigising ka ng 4 o'clock, Villamor, di ba? Sumakay na kayo dito. And then minsan, pag landing mo, sasakay ka pa ng chopper, lilipat kayo sa mga iba-ibang areas. Titakbo yung mga media doon. Kasama ko minsan French, Chinese, American, iba-iba, daming mga international media na nagko-cover sa kanya. And then my job is pag nasa aeroplano na, dadaling ko na yung media kay boss. Boss, may konting itatanong sa inyo to. Uupo yun sa tabi niya, magtatanong na. I explain, this is the trip, this is what we're talking about. So, again, what I saw in him is that media was part of his governance tool, governing tool. He looked at them as partners. Of course, not all the reports are good, di ba? May mga reports na hindi good. Okay lang naman. Nagagalit siya minsan, this is inaccurate. But I think it's just his way of letting steam off. But he knew, by and large, media is part of his governing tool. To be effective, to be an effective leader.
Yeah. And good or bad, he knew how to roll.
Yeah.
He knew how to roll with the punches.
Oo, parang sanay. Sanay na rin eh. Kumbaga, I guess, in his military days, meron namang may mga beat din doon, di ba? So, alam na rin niya makipag-usap eh. So,
bahala nga, naiiwas. Di ba? Oo. But you... Okay. Andito ka ba nung na-emergency siya? Oh,
yes. Hindi, wala. At that time, nag-aaral ako noon. He sent me to Harvard, to John F. Kennedy School, KSG. So, I was abroad when it happened, yung carotid, di ba? Carotid.
How did that affect you?
I was I was shocked. Because, again, as a young man, I looked at him as Superman eh. Fit, always active.
How can that happen?
How can that happen? And very healthy. I was really shocked. But I remember somehow I was able to communicate with him. I don't know how. Mr. President, how are you? Are you really okay? And then I remember him saying, I'm okay. I just need time to recover. But I will be okay. Natatandaan ko yun eh.
Ano yun? Naoperahan na siya?
Naoperahan na siya. Naoperahan na siya.
Oo.
Naoperahan na siya noon eh. Carotid, di ba? Carotid ang naalala ko noon eh. But yun ang natatandaan ko na I was shocked. I didn't expect it. He was very, very active, very healthy. Superman nga ang tingin ko eh.
Idol mo.
Idol ko, hindi magkakasakit. Parang the last thing in my mind is he will be down by something.
Tell me about the scholarship. I mean, I guess that goes back to his seeing to it that people who worked for him were the best that they could be.
Correct. Learning, as I said, learning and training was very much part of his leadership style. So, I think it was Annabelle who first went to Harvard. And then when Annabelle came back, Annabelle was telling me about it. And I said, Annabelle, I would love to go there. And Annabelle said, why don't you ask the president? Maybe he can send you there with his support. So I did. Mr. President, he didn't even have second thoughts about it. When are you thinking? That's gonna be good for you. When do you want to do that? So I said, this is the time. I need your endorsement because he wrote the endorsement. Everything. Help me. So I got it. But I reported to him very often while I was there. These are the courses I'm taking. This is what I'm learning. This is what I think I can share back to your presidency when I come back. So
mas stricto pa sa doon sa mga professor mo sa
hindi, marami ako natutunan doon from an academic point of view. Kay FVR kasi talagang makikita mo upfront yung practical, pragmatic, everyday up close. So hindi mo makukumpara talaga yung dalawa during the midterm election, one story I had also is midterm election. Midterm election, kailangan matagal pa ang bilangan nun Minsan hanggang overnight pa bago. So I was in Malacanang very late and I decided to go overnight. Kasi gusto kong tignan kung ano yung resulta, ilan ang mga senador na mananalo sa atin, sa Congress, etc. And President Ramos somehow also stayed because he stayed back. So I was there alone watching, and his chair was, may chair siya, tapos may TV, tapos sa staff may mga chair sa gilid. Doon ako nakaupo. Sabi niya, halika, dito ka umupo sa chair ko. Panoorin mo to And then habang pinapanood mo yan, report mo sa akin kung anong nangyayari. Mga ganun klase. Those were the, the father in him that I remember. And then I will report to him the results, and then he will tell me his views on what it meant, and then he will ask me, what do you think of that? So, sa akin, yun yung mga precious moments dahil parang tatay siya sa akin nun Tuturuan niya ako paano tignan ang election, what do you think about this?
Let me get to that. Meron kang nabanggit dun sa yung midterm elections, 95. Lakas yung partido niya. Had only 2-3 senators, di ba?
Ano ba nangyari?
Nung pumasok siya, si Manang Leti and Senator Rasul. And then Joe DeV had a
House
rainbow
Speaker,
coalition, but they weren't lakas.
Tama.
So midterm was both an affirmation of what he was doing.
Correct.
Diba? And number 2, he needed a bit more warm bodies
To support.
in the legislature. Tell me your insight into that particular period.
So I think parang ang naaalala ko nun is the midterm elections was parang a validation of how he performed in the first 3 years Kasi parang titignan na rin kung kumbaga, para sa akin, yun na yung fullness of his being a political leader. Kasi nung tumakbo ka ng presidency, ragtag nga Di ba? Ragtag naman yun Pero now you have a 3 years of presidency na, and then magkakaroon ng midterm election, and then you're the head of the country na at that time, and then so parang, in a way, the elections was a validation of his performance as a political leader. So, of course, having the numbers in both chambers of Congress will be important to drive his legislative agenda. So, pinapanood natin, tinitingnan namin kung anong resulta. In fact, hindi ko na matanda kung anong resulta ngayon. Natatanda mo ba ito?
So, majority.
Nakuha
7-5.
7-5 sa Senado. Tapos sa Congress has always been Joe DeV, di ba? Si Joe DeV naman So and at that time, naalala ko din, there was a lot of talk about Chacha.
Okay.
So siguro parang it was being connected to that to that elections na it's a validation na his the way he was running the country was very much accepted by the people. Happy ang tao, happy ang mga politicians. So if ever there was this talk of extending, it had the support of the people.
Parang parang litmus test din.
Parang hindi pa kasi may mga ganun akong naririnig na ganung talk. Pero sa akin, I dismiss that nga kasi nga I was just learning along the way. Learning along the way, wala naman akong pagbabasihang ibang experience na, totoo yun. Hindi totoo yun. Speculation lang yan. Wala So, pasok, labas dito. It's registering, pero pasok, labas. For me, it was just more a midterm election. It's important for the president because there's still a second half na gusto niyang gamitin in the fullness of its term. Hindi yan yung parang second half na yan. Wala na tayong masyadong gagawin dyan, pa-wind down na yan. My sense with him is, it's really a second half. Kagamitin pa natin yan ng todo to be able to really govern properly and make strides in our agenda. So it was important for him because he really looked at the second half as another opportunity, a full half opportunity to make strides in his agenda.
True enough, supposedly the coming out party was APEC 96.
Tama. Di ba? Na doon mo na talagang nakita na international stage, politician, statesman, nagka-come together lahat nun di ba? Oo. So in the sense, the midterm election was important. Oo. And that's why he was watching it.
And then, yun nga, internationally, the coming out party was
Effect. In
96.
Subic yun no? In Subic.
Manila and Subic.
Manila and Subic, oo. Tama.
Nandito ka pa ba nun? O
Nandito pa.
Humayo ka na.
95 to humayo na yata ako nun. Humayo na ako nun. 95 to 96 ako sa Harvard nun
Okay.
96 ang Subic no?
Yes.
Pagkatapos sa Subic, that's when I came back.
You
Tingin ko.
return. Yeah, the term ended.
Tapos nag-Asian financial crisis na around that time no?
97, the bubble, the bubble burst in Thailand first, But supposedly, we were cautioned because we had strong fundamentals.
Yes. Walang panic, walang sense of doom and gloom. Walang ganun Wala akong naririnig na ganun. May contagion, very concerning. It slowed us down. Sayang, maganda na yung momentum. You have to slow down because of the contagion. But that was about it. Hindi yung sense of panic. One more thing. Yung sense of panic and sense of lack of direction never happened during his term. Wala akong naramdaman na gano'n. Hindi yung mga naririnig mo na, is anybody in charge here? Is there direction? There was always somebody in charge. Somebody is always in the house, and that was the president. So even during times of crisis, quote-unquote, you can feel his presence. Relax lang kayo. Kaya natin to. Maririnig mo sa kanya yan Lalo na sa amin, mga staff. Relax lang kayo. Kaya natin to. And true enough, ganun nga. We will systematically chew on the issue of whatever crisis it is. And in the end, tama ang ginawa. In a very orderly fashion. So, yan ang natututunan ko sa kanya pag tinitingnan ko. No sense of panic. No sense of...
Times of emergency, tatanungin ko sa'yo, nabanggit mo na rin lang naman, yung mga near miss.
Oo, near miss.
Yung pumalya yung eroplano, tumirik yung chopper on the way. Did that happen to you?
Baka binlock ko sa utak ko Parang... Hindi. Ang naalala ko lagi sa kanya is yung paglalanding kami, nagpupustahan na kung saan titigil yung... Di ba to? Yun lagi pag-landing na yung eroplano, pustahan na. Di ba may marka yung gulong. Tapos kung saan titigil. Di ba? Pustahan na yun. Kukolektahin na yun. Minsan siya pa kukolekta. Anong pusta?
1 to 12 o'clock.
Di ba? 1 to 12. Tapos 2. 3, pusta. May mananalo. Yes! Babaan na. It was all good fun after a hard day's work. Yun ang tumatatak lagi sa isip ko. Good fun to end a hard day's work.
And there was always something to cap the day.
Na fun, pero hard day's work.
Yung technology. 95, nagsimula na yung internet, and because he was really more a techie guy, he dove into it. In fact, I remember the OP was one of the first offices I saw na may laptop had its own printer and
yes. Ako, nabigyan din ako noon. May laptop ako na may printer para diretso na print. Meron na, tapos may satellite phone, di ba? Nagtatransmit na kami ng pang press release. Imbis na umintay mo pang lumanding sa Maynila, tinatransmit mo na sa Office of the Press Secretary yung press release para pina-finalize na doon para pag landing. Ito na yung press release ng trip ni Presidente. His chief technology officer then was Captain Arevalo so si Captain Arevalo si Balong lagi ang nagsasabi sa akin lahat ng mga technology gadgets nila na bago para for the president to be always in touch, always in reachable and always able to communicate whatever he is doing to the offices across the Philippines.
Again, governance.
Governance. All for the purpose of governance, not pasikat, not sheer fascination with gadgetry, but all to be able to be effectively governed.
What was the mood like heading towards? So you came back from schooling
Late 96.
Okay. So that left you with what, maybe about 24 months
Correct.
of the Ramos presidency. But heading on towards yung huling taon, ano na yung pakiramdam nun? What was the pulse at the palace and with the team?
Yes. Of course, una is ang mga tatlong events, parang tatlong big things ang natatandaan ko na napapag-usap-usapan. Number one is yung parang term limits. Parang may mga movement na nun. Nag-uumpisa-umpisa ng pag-usapan yon. Pangalawa, yung Asian contagion, di ba? Pangatlo is the presidential election. Sino ba i-anoint ni FVR?
Yeah.
Oo.
Let me start out with the first one. The People's Initiative.
Initiative, that's
and
right.
the PIRMA.
Oo, yun pala. Oo.
Campaign.
Sorry my memory is very
that's okay.
eh.
Okay.
Hazy na eh.
But yeah, 6 years is too short for a good man, and it's too long for not too good fellow, di ba?
Correct.
Was that something, you got involved in? Did you participate in that?
I got involved in it only in the sense that I was including it in my media briefing because a lot of opinion writers were already writing about it, a lot of news about it. So I got involved, trying to get a sense of where media and where, in effect, the people were in this issue. And what was very evident then was the trauma of the Marcos years was still very strong. Still very strong. Nakikita mo na the way the issue was being discussed was always in relation to what happened in the martial law years. In the Marcos, baka maulit. Oo. And the sad part of it is, at least for me, because of my loyalty to the president, is whereas his role in the Marcos administration and the martial law years never came up. Never came up even during the DND days, even during the LDP run-up, in his first 4 years of presidency. Parang hindi napapag-usapan. Biglang yun napapag-usapan na. Kasi hindi binabalik during the Marcos years.
May trauma pa.
Oo, may trauma pa. And since he is the main character in this People's Initiative, nababalik tuloy yung years na yon. Which for me is, parang sa akin, we moved on from that na eh. He's now a leader and a statesman. Malayo na, far removed na siya dun eh.
Anong basa mo sa kanya nun? Was he quietly supporting it? Was he ambivalent? Or
He was watching it unfold. Parang I'm not neither going to support this, nor I'm not gonna stop it, because after all, I didn't start it, It's an initiative of some people. So he's just watching it unfold. Sa akin, with one, the way I saw him, with one overriding parameter, which is, if it's going to be such a big distraction to my ability to make full use of my 6 years, because people will be divided, I don't need that. Parang I will do what I can to put a stop to it.
but he eventually did
Or paano ba
saying
nangyari
na
no?
ayaw na niya, no?
True enough, when it became a very divisive issue,
Yes. So,
I think he spoke up na, no?
to Mrs. Aquino and Cardinal Sin.
Tama ba? Ganun ba?
Made a rally
Oo.
and he came back and
Tama.
Say
Oo,
out.
tama. Hindi, that's not my cup of tea, di ba? Oo. Parang ganun, no? Oo. So I think at first he was just parang curious ba? Not excited. I never saw him excited for anything like that. Not excited, not titillated. Curious at best. Parang tinitingnan lang niya. Ano ba to?
sorry, ako naman.
No, go ahead.
Nagano.
So eventually nga, now that you tell me, ganun na nga nangyari. So, and then that was it. Yeah. And then onward to the elect, and then the focus became, who will he anoint?
Yun nga yung problema doon eh, no? Kasi maybe also one of the concerns of people at least who were very supportive of him was because, I mean, the overwhelming popularity and impending victory of
Yes.
Vice President
Correct.
Estrada.
Correct.
So,
May ganung thinking na ibibigay ba natin to sa isang leader na baka hindi handa, di ba? May mga ganun, various strands of thinking. Maganda yung pagpatakbo mo, but hindi natin pagpatuloy, di ba?
So crucial yung tinitingnan din kung sino yung who will continue on or who will FVR
Replace.
how do you call this? Endorse.
Yun, nag-shift na ngayon yung, nung natapos na yung People's Initiative, wala na yon, it's in the back, rear view na siya. Nag-shift na ngayon yung focus ng who we will anoint. Di ba?
And it was a toss-up.
And at that time, I think,
JDV and
Secretary de Villa. Oo. So, as he said, di ba, I'm Secretary de Renato SALUD de Villa yun eh. He's an S, he's my uncle. So I was of course secretly cheering him on na tama. This guy is the right guy because I know him eh. He's a straight guy. He's like President Ramos also in many ways. But he didn't get the endorsement, di ba?
Joe DV.
Si Joe DV na yun. And the rest is history. And the rest was history.
Okay. Baka nabanggit mo na eh. Key learnings na from your tour of duty.
Yeah. At least for me, physical fitness. Because physical fitness and mental will translate into mental agility and mental toughness. So parang nakita ko sa kanya yun. Jogging, eat properly, cat nap. It's part of his governance tool, no? Hindi yung parang pogi o parang malaki ang katawan. He does it because he needs to be at the top of his game. Pangalawa, nakita ko lesson sa kanya is yung malaking bagay sa akin yung scheme. Yung framework of thinking na when you receive information, look at it from an angle, from my framework, not just information to ano ba yung source niya, ano ba yung content, ano yung audience, medium and effect. That became that way of thinking for me and it's helped me a lot. Vet information, assess information, and make decisions based on information, the assessment that I made of the information. Third is yung complete staff work. Everybody will say that, but I think I lived it, I saw it, especially in these DND days. Fourth is related to complete staff in CSW is coordination. No Superman. Coordinate, and you know, consult and coordinate so that it's complete. If you do it on your own, it's not complete staff work. You know, no matter how close you are to me, or no matter how much of an ear you have on my ear, complete staff work means you've already spoken to other cabinet members, other staff members, so that all angles are covered.
Teamwork pa rin.
Teamwork pa rin. Oo. Yung unity, solidarity, teamwork niya, totoo yun. Nakikita ko sa kanya yung UST niya. Fourth yun. Fifth is, again, yung CSW, yung thoroughness and hard work. Nakikita ko sa kanya. Yung sinasabi ko sa'yo, gising siya ng maaga, babasahin niya muna yung local news, pupunta sa international news, magbibigay ng instructions. By the time ng first engagement, nagawa na niya lahat yun. Imagine that.
Fully equipped.
Fully equipped. The first time I meet you is nadaanan ko na yung local news, international news, nabigay ko na instructions ko sa team ko. Okay, now we meet. So,
And what I'm picking up is that these techniques, these tools, is something you brought along as well in your along your career path. Ano?
It has brought me, and I always tell this to the president, where I am today, I owe to him because of the practices and habits I learned and picked up from him. Truly, because it's time-tested formula. How can you go wrong, di ba? How can you go wrong with this kind of learnings and teachings and habits?
Do you get into, or do you bump into people who eventually realize what it was you were doing for a for a former president, and and what do you share with them, and they they suddenly are in awe of you?
It's a very.
What do you tell people of your stint?
Yeah. I always tell them my stint is one of a backroom staffer, junior, very junior. That was my first job. Backroom, very junior. But had the privilege to work and see up close a president. Hindi lang yung backroom, hindi lang junior na nasa likod ka, hindi mo nakikita, but had the privilege of seeing him up front, and hearing from him personally and being mentored by him personally. So kakaiba di ba? So a cabinet secretary will tell me, hindi naman kita nakikita nun Pwedeng sabihin ng cabinet secretary sa akin, Ramos ka rin ba? Oo. But hindi naman kita nakikita nun. Opo, hindi niyo ako makikita. Nasa backdoor ako Oo. Pwedeng mangyari yun. Pero yung experience niya with the president will be very different from me. Kasi ako nakita ko si presidente in a different way As tinignan niya ako minsan na mini-mentor niya ako. Nakita ko siya as a Secretary of Defense. Di ba? Backroom. So, yung experience niya at experience ako, ibang-iba Kaya nga, I like what you're doing because your interviews of various people will come up different shades of the president di ba? Ako, I'm giving it from you from a point of view of a backroom staffer na junior na pero nakita ko siya sa DND days at tinabi niya ako sa sarili niya, dito ka, tuturuan kita. Kaya ganito ang nakikwento ko sa'yo, nakikita ko sa kanya
Mentor din,
Oo.
Mentor, father figure.
Yes, parang
tell me about the soft side of
the president.
Of FVR.
Yun yung parang tinignan ko talaga siya na father figure kasi he was very fatherly in the sense na strict father ang dating hindi yung father na iba very strict, loving father ang dating niya sa akin, para sa akin nung time kong yun. He will teach me, he will give me insights, but he will be, he will be working hard, and then I will have the chance to visit him in his house in Alabang. Makikita ko si Mrs. Ramos, nakita ko sila Christy, si Christy parang naging close sa akin kasi siya yung sports-minded.
Oh, yeah.
Sports-minded si Christy. So, and then of course, his pamangkins, kami nila Stella, the staff. It was one big family kasi members of his staff is also mga pamangkin din niya sila Nani, sila Stella. So there was a sense of family among us, the back staff sa likod.
So, I suppose because you guys were spending the most time with him.
Oo. Nakikita
Not
namin
even the
siya.
cabinet secretaries can
Hindi
claim to that.
Pag nag-alisan na yung mga cabinet
intimacy,
secretaries, tapos na yun Kami, tuloy pa rin kami sa likod. Babalik si Presidente, pagod siya, inis siya, mainit ulo niya, gutom siya. Nakikita namin yun, di ba? Oo, dahil nandun kami sa likod nun So we saw him in many different shades.
I'm into my last few questions already. What, to your view, could be FVR's greatest legacy as president?
As president. First is, one of his greatest legacy for me is the way by which he demonstrated that the sacredness of the office of the presidency. It's not something you aspire for and make light of. It's not something you aspire for and not be at your best on a daily basis, on a minute by minute basis. The legacy of giving due justice to the position. The legacy of giving due justice to the votes and the right of suffrage of the people. Nilagay nyo ako dito, binoto nyo ako dito, sacred duty to, I will show you that I will also hold this office in such a manner. Sa akin yun ang tumama sa akin sa kanya Up to the last minute. Parang, this is not plaything. This is not something that I'm enjoying and make and take advantage of. This is a sacred duty, and I will use this, and I will prosecute this duty every minute, every day to the best of my ability. For me, kung yun lang ma-carry on ng lahat ng tao na maging presidente or will aspire for the presidency, it will really make this country so much better. Kasi alam mo naman ang boto, democracy.
Yeah.
Pwede ka maboto dahil popular ka, pwede ka maboto dahil marami kang pera, and pwede ka maboto dahil yung context ng panahon napapabor sa'yo. Ang daming factors to become a president But what is consistent is pag nandun ka na, yung alam mo na seryoso tong trabahong to. Kung hindi man akong handa, kailangan mag-aral ako like hell para maging handa. At kung handa naman ako, I really have to improve myself more kasi napakalaki nitong responsibility dito. Yun ang nakita ko sa kanya. That's what I saw in President Ramos. He took his role and his duty seriously.
Did you stay on after he left?
Step down? No more. I joined the private sector after that. Yeah.
Nag-go to Okay.
When he stepped down, I joined the private sector, and that was it. I never went back to government. Yeah.
So, you can only serve one president.
Oo, hirap palitan taas ng standard
So, siguro yung huli kong tanong, given everything you went through while you were with him, would you do it all again?
Yes, 100%. Without any doubts, without batting an eyelash. It was, in fact, I tell my kids, they graduate. Because, hindi naman sa pagyayabang to. When I graduated at Ateneo Law School, there were 8 of us who graduated with honors. All of us were being courted by the biggest law firms.
Yeah.
Lahat ng law firm.
I can
kinokort
imagine.
kami. 7 out of the 8 went into the biggest law firms. I went to government. And was my first paycheck sa DND was 2,500 pesos a month. I remember that. Yan, Ateneo graduate ka, honors ka. But I will not I will not trade it for anything else because of President Ramos. Ang dami ko natutunan sa kanya na up to today, I'm reaping the benefits of. Up to today, without exaggeration, hanggang ngayon, I'm reaping the benefits of.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you also.